to the Bayview Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Clark, and today I am Chrisless, but instead, to replace him, we've brought three of my good buddies to sit down with us, and we're going to talk about all things parenting. We are in the middle of a relationship series here at Bayview on Sundays, and this past week, Pastor Chris talked through just what it means to be a parent, what that looks like, and we figured it might be fun to bring some different parents on, different stages of parenting, and talk all things good, bad, and even a little bit of the ugly. And none of us are professionals, but I think if you have a child, that makes you semi-pro, and I don't know, it's good. And so I'm joined first by Brock, who's normally behind the cameras, now gets a seat at the desk. Brock, tell us who you are and how many kids do you have?
Yeah, so my name is Brock. I am a dad. Yeah, it does kind of feel that way where it's like, oh, you want to be in the NBA? Just walking through the front doors and they gave you the certificate. Like, here you go. You're on a team.
Yep.
You're just kind of thrown into the water and start drowning right away. Yep. No, it's a great time. I have two kids with one on the way, so...
Nice.
Super excited about that. They are 3 and 1. My 1-year-old turns 2 next week.
Awesome. So you're in it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then next to you is Miss Kathleen. How are you?
I'm good. So Kathleen, and we have 2 children. We have 2 girls, and we are in the teen stage. So we have an almost 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. So.
Okay.
We
Very
are
cool.
in a completely different stage than Brock is, but just as challenging.
But still in it.
Oh, still for sure in it. Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. We're doing it.
Very cool. And then to my right is Miss Nicole.
Hello. Yes, I'm Nicole. I have a little boy who is almost 10 and a little girl who is 5. And we are just very busy. Mm-hmm. Our 5-year-old is a typical 5-year-old. She's all over the place. She's busy. And our little guy is not so little, but all things sports right now. So
very cool.
They keep us on our toes.
Yeah. So both you and Kathleen are kind of in like the nonstop, like always going type stage.
Yes.
That's kind of what you're heading into, and you're definitely in that, Kathleen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. And then, my wife and I, we have a almost 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 8-day, 7-day. She's here. She's newborn. So a little one. And it's a good time. It's a good time.
You just keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, it's
so
like
fun.
3 a.m. I'm like, this is worth it. This is worth it. So
totally.
No, but it's good. And so we are, at this table, like I said, all kind of different stages. If Chris was here, he has all kind of grown children who are now having children.
Which was the initial plan, but we got snowed out last week.
Yeah,
so.
Classic. So, but definitely different kind of pace. And I think that's the one thing maybe we can start talking about is just the pace of life and how, I think, Brock, you kind of even made the joke about the drowning or walking into the NBA game and them saying, hey, you're playing. It's like, that's what it is. Like, there's nothing, I don't know how many books my wife has read, and I got to specify she read them. I just was fed the information, or videos watched or conversations had. It's like, once you're in the hospital room and the baby's there, it is just go. Right. And I definitely remember even the first time, like, leaving the hospital, and they're like, oh, you're going to let us take them? Okay. And so, maybe let's just talk different. What does that pace look like? And what have you guys found, especially, Nicole and Kathleen, you guys are a little further ahead. How does that pace of life change? And what have you learned? And also what's been a struggle with it?
I mean, I think for us, and I mean, we feel really fortunate. We have both sets of parents here in town. So I feel like we always hold true to, like, it takes a village. Like, we wouldn't be able to have our children participate in as much or be going here and there without the help of grandparents. And it's been so helpful to have them at our disposal, and they want to, and they're excited for it, and they're excited for the kids. So I always hold true to that. I mean, we feel like we've built a really great community around our family and around our kids, and just experiences with our younger daughter. We've been able to bring in people too that have wisdom in other areas that we don't necessarily know, but are able to help us learn how to parent her and parent our older child. So I don't know, for us, we just hold true to that. Like, yes, it's Chris and I, and we are mom and dad, but it takes this whole other realm of people to help us be the best that we can be and show up for them every day, and and move steady with that. I mean, that's how we have to do it.
That's cool. And then you said you have both sets of parents in town, and they're super involved with that, which has been huge.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I feel so blessed and grateful to have that. And yeah, I mean, it allows for a lot of opportunities for our family to be able to experience just different things for them, extracurricular, and cool. I mean, good with the bad, I guess, right? I mean, that's why we're probably moving at a faster pace, and we have to be conscious of, like, slowing ourselves down and making that time for, like, families and family dinners, like I was sharing earlier, and just being, I don't know, aware of what we're saying yes to and committing to, and just making sure our family unit stays forefront. But so it's a balance for sure.
For sure. What have you seen, Nicole, as, like, you're transitioning into that, Cooper, if I can use his name.
Oh, yeah.
Little Coop, he's, I mean, everything now, right? And so
Everything.
What have you guys found that's worked?
We have really poured into planning, like even from meal prep to when we're going to do the laundry and when we're going to clean the house, and when family time is. We've really poured into that, and we've been very conscious about what is more important. Like, yes, he's gung-ho for travel baseball right now. January 2nd, it was like practice is going. I'm like, there's still snow everywhere. But practice has moved to Sundays, and we know that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Our planning is church is more important, so we're going to do that. So we have to plan to make practice on a different day, and somehow it needs to come from mom and dad versus coaches. But we kind of have an opposite of what Kathleen has. We do not have the super close family.
Sure.
My father is very involved, but he still lives an hour away, so he can't be here at all times. So a lot of things fall on Joe and I. Well, everything does. But we have built a community around us that is very helpful with home group and even daycare, church friends.
Yeah.
It's building that community around us and planning. It feels like it's always moving. So, yeah.
Did you guys both feel that pace? Because I know for Brock and I with younger ones, we have a different pace. Like, it's probably a little more scheduled. At least we just feel more like the kids, if they're not at daycare, they nap at this time, and we're trying to do bed at this. Like, it feels way more like regimented.
Sure.
Did you feel that transition of pacing of life, or was it just kind of one day you're like, oh, we're kind of doing this now, or like what was that like?
I think when our youngest turned, I think she was about 4.5 when she stopped taking regular naps. I was like, wow, we have a little bit more freedom.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to do more things. We didn't have to make sure we were home at a certain time. But yeah, before that, it was very regimented. And yeah.
I think for us, our kids are almost 5 years apart. So I feel like we eased into that pace a little bit, where I feel like if we would have had kids, a year and a half, 2 years apart, we probably would have been hitting the ground running a lot faster. Yeah. So we were able to really pour into my daughter, my oldest. She plays like travel soccer, and so that's pretty much her whole life. We're doing that year round. So we were able to ease into that schedule and the pace of that a little, I feel like, nicely. I mean, it didn't feel a lot. And then when Harper, our youngest, got to an age where she now has started expressing wanting to do different things too. That's when we felt like, okay, pace is picking up. We're juggling schedules. We're, trying to figure out what's going on. So for me, I felt like we eased into figuring out how to set these schedules and manage it. And then now we're just in like this hit the ground running kind of going where both kids are going in opposite directions but making it work.
Yeah. Brock, what have you kind of seen? I mean, what's the pace like with two boys who like to go, even though they're kind of young?
There's no pace. There's nothing that's consistent. It's great. No, we love it. Jay stopped doing regular naps when he was like young 3-year-old. So we had a little bit of an experience where we didn't have to worry about nap time because Zane was still young enough to sleep all the time. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, right now, Paige and I just kind of have accepted with the way our schedules work with having to be at the church late on Thursdays. We're out during weeknights a lot with the kids. We just kind of have adapted them to our own life. We just kind of do the best we can. And the kids we kind of have just let them adapt to sometimes you're going to bed at 7, sometimes you're going to bed at 10:30. That's just going to happen. Sometimes we're going to take 2 naps today. Sometimes we're going to take none. Just kind of going all through what we can just to kind of fit the chaotic schedule of what we do. And I don't have any advice on how to handle that best. We just kind of went for it. And it's for us right now, it's working. But who knows? Maybe throwing a third kid in isn't going to allow for that. Maybe we'll have to get a little more strict on it.
Sure. You said this, and I'm interested for Nicole and Kathleen too, like and I don't think there's a right or wrong based on what you choose to do as parents. But obviously with schedules that are kind of like fast paced and going in opposite directions sometimes, having young ones, having jobs that maybe are some days it's late nights and whatnot. What have you found? Is it kind of changed over time versus the kids schedule versus they're just doing what we're doing? And what have you found? I don't know if there's one or the other that you've kind of lived by, and what maybe have you found has worked within that, and what has been kind of a struggle within that, if that makes sense. And you can answer this too, Brock.
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing is a lot of the disciplines that a lot of kids and parents have for their kids, like sleeping schedules and them sleeping on their own throughout the night, eating habits, just things like that. We've realized, like, with our lifestyles, it's not easy to just kind of demand a lot of that. So there are a lot of things that we have just kind of conceded to be like, no, we're going to make our lives easier now, and kind of push against like the social way of how a lot of parents do things. So like for us, our kids go sleep with us. We got Jay slept with us till he was 3 in our bed with us, and him and Zane would both sleep in between Paige and I. And then several months ago, Jay started sleeping on his own bed, but his bed's on the floor in our room.
Yeah.
And for us, that works because with some of those late nights, we just don't have the energy to parent them well during the day, and also discipline or build those disciplines in a way that the world kind of tells you you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's created some hardships. Sure, it takes a long time to get the kids to bed. That's something we've just grown to be okay with, and we've just kind of realized this is more important for us, because if we don't have the energy at night to do that because we're using it all on making them stay in their own room all night, we're not going to have the patience for the next day to really give them what I feel like is a really good example of just patience and stuff,
Yep.
I mean, you're in good company here because we also co-sleep,
Heck
and
yeah.
both of my girls have.
Same.
I was saying, I know Nicole does too, and I mean, Harper is 9, and she's still in our bed every night. So our one rule is out, and it was with both girls. They had to start in their own beds, but I mean, like you said, you can't show up the next day and be present for your kids and all of that if you're exhausted. So we know it works best for our family, and for Chris and I, it's always been that. We know that co-sleeping, she gets a great night of sleep. We're still sleeping pretty well. And it's a natural progression. I mean, I think our oldest was maybe 9 or 10 when it was kind of the same. Like, she just slept in her own room, and that was it. And she never has kind of turned back, where And Harper's right about that 9. And I mean, she's still in our bed, and I don't know. I mean, I love it, but so I'm probably creating more of it too, where I'm just like, oh, just snuggle in, it's cozy. But I mean, again, you have to do what's best for your family, and that's the thing. And you have to stand in that and take other people's opinions, but
Yeah.
you still have to hold true to what's going to work for your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so against co-sleeping when we had kids. I was like, no, there's no way this is ever going to happen. And Paige was pretty for it, and I wanted to sleep, so I didn't care. It was easier for her to get up in the middle of the night with our kids and feed them and do what she needs to do. So I'm like, you know what? If she's going to let me sleep because of this, like, I'll still get up and help, but I'm just going to let her make the call. And I grew to love it.
Yeah.
And then we convinced ourselves, okay, we're going to try and get them to sleep in their own beds. And we tried like the incremental, like, over the course of a week, you let them cry it out longer and longer. And I'm just like, okay, we can do this. I caved in night 2, I think. It was like, oh, we're on to 5 minutes already. This is not happening. Because I have too much of a soft spot. I can't listen to my kids cry for that long. And I know that's not always the right answer, because that can be a weakness in some areas of life. But for me, I don't know. We love it. We do. We still snuggle with Jason and Zane to get them to bed every night. And Zane's in a phase where he'll still throw a fit for an hour because he doesn't want to go to bed.
I mean, I think
it happens.
Yeah. I think, too, you just hear it from people where they're like, it's not going to be forever. I mean, it's such a short time in your life where you're going to have them in your bed, or you're going to have them, I think there's just different parts of, I know parents sometimes are like, oh, getting kids off bottles or out of pull-ups or potty training, that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, they're not going to be 18 and still wanting to sleep in your parents' bed. Like, that's just going to be weird at that point. But so I don't know. I always keep that in my forefront, too, where I'm like, it's such a snapshot and such a blink of time in the grand scheme of things that I'm going to have my 9-year-old in bed with me. And the fact that she wants to be in there and that's where she feels safe and all the things like that, just, I don't know, for me, that makes me feel, just that we're doing it right and that she wants, and comforting her. I mean, obviously we're all going to do anything for our kids that are going to comfort. And if that's what she needs at this point in her life, that's what she needs. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Nicole?
I think it's, excuse me, Cooper, back to the co-sleeping, Cooper got a bunk bed when he was probably 7. And I remember, well, I'm not climbing up there. So how are we going to snuggle before bed or read our stories? And he's like, it's fine, Mom. I can read by myself now. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And now Eleanor is still wants us in our bed, and she's in her bed getting her ready. And I just think of all that quality time before bed that you're getting. And the books say, don't do that. The books say, put them to bed, leave them alone. I didn't read any of the books. I picked and choose, if I had a question, I'd look at them. Because I don't think the world doesn't have it right. There is no one answer. We're all different. Each kid is different. My kids are polar opposites.
Right.
But you have to make it work within your home and what's best for you. And like I said, one versus the other is going to be different.
Yeah.
Now for you, Andrew, though, you guys don't co-sleep.
No,
but that's not incorrect. You're not getting ganged up on 3-on-1 here. But how does that?
You kind of are.
Yeah. Well, I feel
Start
wrong.
tonight.
You did it wrong. You've done it wrong the whole time.
You could have saved yourself so much time.
Yeah, I think you guys are all right. And what I was gonna say is the best piece of advice I ever received was from a good friend who said, "Hey, believe it or not, we're all just doing what works best, and you have to do that." And I remember feeling so much peace because there is like all the books say this, all the videos say this, blah blah blah, and our son he slept with us for a decent amount early on, the first couple months, and then we got him into the crib, and like he just slept, and it wasn't one of those things. And as he got older, like when he'd get in and out of bed, if he'd come in and want to snuggle with us, we would. There wasn't like this like shooing away, but like our daughter, she loved to sleep, and she would just sleep anywhere. And it's been interesting because like when it comes to potty training and things like that, like again, you talk about how different the kids are. our son, it was the only thing that got him to be potty trained was we said 4-year-olds don't wear diapers. And on his 4th birthday, he was potty trained because in his mind, oh, I'm 4, I don't wear diapers anymore.
Right.
And then our daughter, who just turned 3 a week or so ago, she was potty trained at 2 because, oh, brother's potty trained. I don't like this. Yep, I'll just do it. Like
Right.
complete opposites.
Right.
And so I think for us, that was a big thing with the sleep was a similar schedule that we have, like with Brock, was like, you know, our son has slept in a storage closet in a pack and play because we were at a camp and we need to put him down for a nap, and that was the darkest space, and they've kind of done the all over thing. And so I think that's why I asked that question, because I don't think there's a right answer. I think you guys have all said it. It's okay to do what works. And I don't know, I think what's funny is I think most people, that's how they raise their kids, but sometimes maybe that doesn't feel like a safe, like, thing to say out loud. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Where it's like, we're all like, well, no, we're good. Yep. They slept on their own day one. It's
Right.
like, did they?
Yeah.
and so, Nicole, I think you're right. I think there's this level of intentionality with parenting, and if your child is able to do it and roll with it, and then it's like, okay. But if they need the extra loving or they need the extra space, you're not wrong. I think
Right.
I think you can have, maybe take a deep breath and knowing like you're raising your child the best you
Yeah.
can. So
Well, I think social media and the books and all that, they set you up for failure. They want you to raise a robot baby. And it's not what it looks like on Instagram.
yeah.
Right.
And you don't look like what these people look like. You know, it's a hot mess with diapers and
Yep.
dirty clothes for a while.
Years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm on almost 10.
Right.
We're done with diapers, but
Yeah.
yeah, the world wants you to look a certain way, and it's never that way,
Yeah.
ever.
Did you guys find the transition from 1 to 2, like with more kids, was it difficult to rewire your brain though? Meaning, well, kid 1 went this way, so kid 2 should probably similar DNA. Hopefully they'll
Right.
just follow along. My son would sleep probably 1 nap a day, like on my chest. He was like, that was like awesome. And my daughter wanted nothing to do with being snuggled. And I was like heartbroken, because I would rather snuggle with her than him. But anyways, it was just like, but that was a weird transition of like, okay, here we are. We kind of know how this works. And then, yeah, just throw it out the window.
I mean, I think in our situation too, we definitely took some things that we learned first time around, and we were like, okay, we're not gonna, and co-sleeping was one of them. Like we co-slept with Noelle, and with and there was situations that led up to, I think, of her needing more care throughout like her night schedules, and she was a preemie, so there was more of a need to stay on a schedule and be up every couple hours. So it just lends itself to more needing her near us to kind of give that care that she needed. So for us, we were like, oh, well, this is why we co-slept, and this is why we did all the things. And so when Harper came, and Harper's adopted, so completely different DNAs, but we were also like, okay, we're going to, you know, we experienced that with Noelle, and we loved it, and these were some things that we did, but we're going to really hold true. We're going to, you know, stick to our guns on this one. And we did. I mean, as a little baby, she was in her crib, and we did all the things. But, I mean, we could just tell that, you know, she needed that from us, and we're going to provide that, and we're going to give her. And I think for us, again, we had very unique kind of birth experiences with both of our children. So adopting a child is a completely different realm of learning needs. And I think for us, that close connection of co-sleeping and having her near and all of that was important in the beginning. And then we were able to transition and do a year or two of her, you know, kind of sleeping in her crib and moving forward with that. And then we just kind of came back to a point where she needed to be near us again. And that's where we're at. So, I mean, I feel like it's hard to say. You do take things, you kind of set some boundaries that you're like, nope, we're going to, you know, we experienced that once and we don't want to go that route again. But also children are so individual, and you have to just kind of meet them where they're at. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of just almost not having expectations. I don't know. I mean, I feel like when you do set yourself up with those expectations, and if you're not meeting them, I mean, it's that constant feeling of potentially failing. Or if you're inundated with social media and people telling you that you're failing and you're not, they're not sleeping in their bed and they're not out of pull-ups or whatever it might be, they're not eating clean, and it can be a challenge. Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Cooper was 4.5 when we brought Eleanor home, and they have 2 totally different birth stories, but they also looked like identical twins. It was so weird. It was, I don't know. I expected like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, just welcoming another one. I got 4.5 years under my belt.
Totally.
I can send him to preschool and be just me and the baby. And then he started getting like separation anxiety. So it was like, oh, now I feel like I have 2 little ones, like little ones. So it was nothing like what I expected. Yeah. He got over it really quickly, and then he was totally fine. He enjoyed his time away. But I had all these expectations for feeding and for how Eleanor was going to sleep, and I would have loved, as much as I love co-sleeping now, I would have loved for her to sleep in her crib for the first, and not on top of us.
Yeah.
But it was not what I expected.
Yeah. That word expectations, whether you're about to be a first-time parent or this is child like 6, how have you guys managed expectations then? Knowing, Kathleen, what you said about it's completely different, and we've adopted this one, and what does this look like versus this is going to be easy, and then it's not, Brock with 2 young, and here comes a third, and we're in the similar boat where it's like, here's the third, we've done this before, I'm in the hospital room, I'm like, same old, like, it is what it is. But it's like, how have you managed those expectations, and maybe where's like the grace that you've given yourself in some of those, if that makes sense, and then maybe what kind of advice of expectations you give to maybe a first time or about to be a first time parent.
Yeah, for me it was the transition from 0 to 1 kids was really hard. My wife went through some postpartum depression, and I did too. I spent a week just daily breakdowns, not really sure what I'm doing because I was so excited for this child to have so much fun with, and it was just, it truly felt miserable.
Yeah.
It was super unenjoyable. I didn't want to take care of my kid, not like I did. Like I loved my kid at the time, you know what I mean? But it's like I have this little tiny thing that I expected to be something, and there's just no way to actually prep for it.
Yeah.
What I hear they tell you in pre-marriage counseling, I never went through that. Judge me later, whatever. One of the biggest things I always hear my dad say is like, if you have any expectations with your spouse, you're probably going to be disappointed because they grew up different than you. Even if they had a similar family life to you, there are things that were different. Even talking to my own parents about what it's going to be like being a parent and seeing other parents around me, they can tell you what to expect, but you can't expect anything. You can receive advice on how to best handle situations, but you're not ever going to be prepared on how to actually handle the situation. You just kind of got to get good at it.
Sure.
And the only way to do it is to do it. And so, like, I think of, when I had night terrors till I was like 10 years old or something like that. It was pretty intense. And so I see that in my son, and my oldest son. He definitely has had some of those. And I think, like, man, the only thing that made me feel better is like bringing all my stuffed animals from my room and putting them in my own bed with me. And I'm like, for me, that works. And I remember I would tell my son, no, you can't have more than 2 stuffed animals in your bed with you. Sorry, we're not doing that. But just reminding myself of like, where did I hear that this is not okay? Like,
sure.
it's just kind of putting that expectation of the world on myself of like, these things aren't okay. No, it's fine. They help him feel safe, and that's what's going to matter for now. So, yeah, I guess that's my advice, is just don't really have any expectations and just lean on those around you for support.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of goes back to that open communication with your spouse too, and how, going into situations, how you want to parent or handle, or, who can mentally show up at that present moment too. I feel like a lot of times, for my spouse and I, we kind of have to tag team our younger daughter. So there's times where he's more available and his demeanor's calmer, and he's able to kind of handle whatever situation that she might be struggling with at that moment, where I have to just kind of take a step back, knowing that like at that point I might not be able to help her, or I might escalate the situation. So I think it's just really keeping like an open communication and just constantly talking about how you want to parent, because I mean it changes through the years. I mean, you guys, the way we parented when littles, I mean, it's completely different now about how we're parenting older children too, and just how that changes. So I think that constant communication, and I mean, like I said, taking advice from the people you do have around you. I mean, I feel like staff and the wonderful ladies that I work with, I think my parents, grandparents, we have some special people in our lives as some therapists and people who have given us different ways and strategies. So I think just, I guess just being able to adapt and not sitting so hard in your, I guess I don't want to say like rules or boundaries or expectations, and just being, like you said, it's fine to have 20 stuffed animals in your bed. Like, why not? Why not? If that brings them comfort, why not? And I mean, and that's been really, and I too struggle with that too, especially with our younger, where I'm like, if she wants to go play in the mud and get dirty, who cares? I'll give her a bath and we'll wash her off. It doesn't have to be this, like, I don't know, just so cut and dry, I guess.
Yeah.
Is maybe
That's fair.
what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Joe and I have our childhoods were a little bit messy. So we didn't have the best examples of how to raise kids. I knew I wanted them, he wanted them, and I said, cool.
Let's go.
It'd be easy, right?
Yeah, it'll be so easy. But I had so many expectations of how I didn't want it to go and what I did want. And I hate to admit this, but I definitely raised Cooper versus Eleanor differently. And that also came with the knowledge of when I had Eleanor, I also was learning to be a teacher. Okay. So I had like different skill sets. So Cooper got a little bit more of that stricter mom, 2 stuffies. We're not gonna jump in that mud puddle. Right. And now he's got more of a free spirit, and he's gonna jump in that mud puddle. He doesn't care what I have to say. But that was a big learning curve for both Joe and I. We wanted this perfect picture, and we learned very fast that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. Kids have different plans.
Yes, very much so.
Yep. Yeah, that's what's been interesting with the expectation thing is a prayer that I have found myself doing a lot, because it was almost like if I'm honest, like a gut check thing for me. Because with Liam, my oldest, when he was born, my father had just passed a couple months earlier, and it was, similar to Brock. Like I was like, I don't like my kids crying. I don't think any of us enjoy our kids crying. But I felt like the moment I heard any kind of whimper, this like anxiousness would just well up in me. And the longer they cried, though, the angrier I got. Versus like more sympathetic. I got like really annoyed, really angry. To the point where like I would like hold my son late at night, and I was just like, nothing crazy, but I was just mad. And it really pushed me to get therapy, which was like one of those things that I think as a parent, I found myself being like, having a child will bring out the good, the bad, the ugly in you very quickly and very obviously, and it'll probably prick at some points where you're like, oh, you have some expectations of yourself that maybe need to be checked or maybe need to be kind of worked through and things like that. But I think the transition from 1 to 2 back to that side of things was well, this will probably go exactly the same. She's just a girl, so it might be a little cuter. Like, like that was the expectation, if I'm being honest. And obviously that wasn't the case, and it was a whole different experience. And so coming to number 3, the prayer, back to that, the prayer that I have found myself praying is, do I view, it has been, God, help me view them as a blessing and not a burden. Because I think if we're not careful with our expectations, boundaries, all those things, it can be this very, they're just part of our life and not important in our life.
Right.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense? That
Yeah.
tracking? Tell me I'm not alone in this.
You're good.
And I think that was something I really had to check myself on,
Yeah.
because I had all these expectations. I had all these thoughts of what being a dad was going to be like, and what, we were going to have a kid, and it was going to be awesome and fun, and we were going to be the cool parents. And then my wife and I were going to be still super intimate, and it was just going to be like, whatever, like, life is going to keep rolling. And that's not the case. And if we're not careful, that it's all of a sudden they can be very quickly become almost this burden sense of, I just have this thing,
Right.
and not the blessing side of, like, is it really that big of a deal in this moment if they jump in that mud puddle?
Right.
Maybe if we're on our way to church and it's like, you look nice, but at the same time it's like, they're 4,
Right.
they're
Exactly.
5. And I think that's been a massive gut check and turned into a prayer. And it's a conversation my wife and I have a lot of how are we viewing our children? And I don't know if you guys have found yourself in that place before, and maybe what that has looked like for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I still struggle with that patience sometimes. Like, Zane is a much more difficult toddler than Jace was. And so, like, just 3 nights ago, he decided, like, bedtime was going great. He was almost asleep. All of a sudden, he's going to whine about something. We tell him no. That spiraled into an hour and 45-minute crying fit of just pure anger from him. He was so tired, he didn't know what to do. We couldn't ration with him because he's basically asleep, just screaming. And yeah, it was the same thing. Like, just, you get really angry. You just because you've expected, oh, they're going to be asleep in 10 minutes. I can get up and go watch that show that I was going to. No, you're going to be here for 2 more hours. Sorry about it. And it's kind of just like that all the way around for me with parenthood. It's like 0 to 1, zero kids to 1 kid. It's that transition. For me though, 1 kids to 2 kids was so easy because I think, and this is kind of the only real advice I have for parents is who are getting into it for the first time, of just allow yourself to change, allow yourself to adapt. Don't read all the books and force yourself to change in the ways that they tell you. Just allow yourself the room and the grace and the freedom to parent the way that you need to. Because what that did for us when the second child was born was, I didn't have any expectations then. Things were easy for us. Respectfully, parenthood still is never easy, but we were just able to flow with it so much easier, and it just made life so much easier, and it gave us more patience, and it just allowed me to see God in it more, because I think the expectations I had were just kind of blocking God from what that looked like in our kids, because they're so young. I don't need to tell them about Jesus. They're 6 months old. Who cares, And since then, all that freedom has just allowed us the room to really focus on telling them about Jesus and stuff, and it's cool watching them learn about it. But my expectations blocked it before that. So
I feel like, and I always remind myself of this, is that I feel like God has been preparing me to be this type of mother or be this type of parent. I feel like what I learned parenting Noelle and what I've learned through teaching and all these things have prepared me to be the mother that I show up for Harper. Because there are some difficulties that we run into, and some things that I need to pull strength from different areas, and I rely on prayer a lot for that. I rely on knowing that he has given me life experiences up to this point to help me be the best parent for her, and I'm constantly learning and always changing and adapting. And I know I go back to like that village thing, but I'm always pulling from those people their strengths and like how I can show up and be present for her, and how my husband and I both can. So I feel like God didn't just plop this child in my life and was like, here, deal with her and know how to do all the things great. Like, it was very much like, no, I've been preparing you since you were a child or whatever, up until this point, to be able to be present for her and mother her the way that she needs to be. And not that we don't have hard days. We have plenty of hard days and moments, and I don't always show up as my best self in some of those moments, but I'm able to. And I think maybe for me, I have to, and which has been helpful, be mindful of reflecting on those situations too, of like, why did I escalate, or why did I create a situation that she now has turned into an hour tantrum, where I could have just been like, I'm gonna walk away, I'm gonna give her space, or I could have handled it differently, and just knowing, okay, next time this is what I'm gonna do, or I'm gonna gain some more knowledge in that area, so I know how to present or be available when it arises again, because it always does.
Yep.
I mean, those situations always do.
100%.
I think about what you said, burdens versus blessings. And 2 years ago, both of the kids, it was like every other week they were sick with something. And I found myself getting so frustrated and so angry, like, why aren't you washing your hands?
Yeah.
Why are you putting toys in your mouth? Like, almost like this is your fault.
Yeah.
And really, I got to stay at home and I got to sleep or snuggle with them, and I got to be their comfort and make them feel better. In the moment, I was like, well, I could be working or I could be doing something else. And then I think, but that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to work.
Right.
I wanted these babies. God gave me these ones for a reason. They are a true blessing, and they have raised me as I'm raising them, if that makes sense. Like,
Totally.
I, like you said, Brack, like giving myself the freedom to fail and to change and all that. I'm growing along with them.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I've learned very quickly that I do not like to apologize or be wrong. And
Same.
kids very quickly have
It's like, yeah.
forced me to make a choice, make an action, and then I find myself a few moments later walking up and being like, Daddy's very sorry for how he, but it's like that's been something it's like almost softened that side of me. And so to allow yourself to change and adapt, I think is really good. One of my last kind of questions, obviously we could kind of just keep talking about kids is how, obviously when life happens, kids are in the mix, life continues, jobs, all that kind of stuff. What have you guys found has been how do I word this? What have you found for you and your spouse that's been a way to continue to be kind of married and pursuing each other in the midst of raising children? Because I think that is something that, if we're honest, can get lost in it all very quickly. And that's one of those heartbreaking things whenever you hear about the families, the couples that have 3 or 4 kids and they're amazing and they raise these incredible children and all the children are at the house, and then mom and dad get divorced. And it's like because they spent 18, 20 years raising and solely focus on the children that they forget the pursuit of each other. And I think that's something that we it'd be remiss if we didn't say that there's a vitalness to the pursuit of each other still within this, especially if there are 2 of you, right? There's the spouse. And so what have you found, through communication or different things that has been little things that has worked for you guys? Again, maybe not saying it's perfect, but just what have you kind of found that that's helped?
For us, it's been just being really intentional with spending time with each other after the kids go to bed. Paige and I are in a very unique situation where we both work here at the church and we both lead our entire worship department, and we work together throughout the day. We're around each other a lot, but we have still failed at times to find the intimacy and find that time together, just because if you're not intentional about it, it's probably just not going to happen. So for a while we were just, okay, the kids are asleep. Finally, we can relax and go do the do our own hobbies and the things. Like, she would read, I'd go play video games, whatever. And even then we realized, okay, we're relaxing and we're chill, but we're not actively trying to spend time with each other, right? We're not setting aside that time like we should be to just at least hang out with each other for a little while, let alone go on dates and whatever. We used to go on dates every week. We go on a date once every 2-ish months now, maybe. And we can say, well, let's be more intentional about it. But until you actually start making a game plan of doing that, it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. Because it fails for us every single time. Yeah, we're going to go on a date once a month. Sorry, it's not going to work this month. Stuff came up. Whatever. And we don't reschedule it. We just say, well, maybe next time. And it's along with having kids, like, you're sacrificing part of your life. And in order to maintain a healthy marriage and a healthy lifestyle, you kind of have to still sacrifice a little bit more to make sure that you're committing that time with your wife. So, or husband, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all of that. I mean, I think we have to be super intentional. I mean, Chris and I are the same. I mean, we have to live. It sounds so boring, but like, you have to sometimes. And we've been married almost 18 years now. So I mean, with busy schedules in life and where we're at right now, we are pretty good about scheduling those date nights. Or typically I'm off on Thursdays and Fridays, so like, we'll go do lunch dates, or we have to get a little more creative about what our days look like. But for the most part, we try during the week to have that time. But I mean, we're kind of the same. Like, we both, when the kids are in bed, we kind of just go opposite. And I think, I mean, just hearing you talk, like, reflecting on our own time together, like, I feel like we should be more intentional with that time, because it's, I mean, we work with children all day. You're kind of just touched out at that point. You're like, I need a moment. I need a breather. My responsibilities of my children are in bed. I don't need that. And jokingly, I'm always like, I've been taking care of people all day. I can't take care of you too. And I know that sounds harsh. And I always, when I say it, I'm always like, oh, that was not very nice to say. But, I feel like allowing yourself to have that breather, but being mindful that is my person. I need to pour into that person too. And yeah, it's hard. It's really hard when you feel that you don't have anything else to give. I guess, how and where do you muster that energy? And it's hard some days. It is really hard.
Yeah, and I'll be clear, we don't have it figured out.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, we probably will never have it figured
out.
Yeah,
we tried doing it multiple nights a week.
Yeah.
And we're like, this multiple nights a week doesn't work for us.
Totally.
We need to go out to lunch together once a week.
Yeah.
And we do what we call Mario Mondays. We sit down, play Mario Kart, Mario Party, do something together.
That's perfect.
Sometimes it's just watching Survivor and catching up on whatever season we're on. But it's like, we don't want to overdo the expectation, because we are overdone from our kids. So, but you got to find the balance.
Well, and we're so opposite. Like, when kids are in bed, Chris is also ready for bed. Like, he loves his sleep, and I'm like, oh, I have a couple hours to myself. The house is quiet. I'm not picking anything up, so I want to sit on the couch and like binge my show. So we're opposite in that too, where I'm like, okay, we should be intentional about, like, let's pick a show or whatever and take an hour and just hang out and connect for the day. And I don't know. It's hard to do.
Joe and I are actively pursuing change in our marriage. We just started seeing a marriage counselor / family counselor, just to kind of like break those traditions of our childhood that I was talking about, but like just some maintenance and learning how to communicate, because we are not good at it all the time. Has been, and I mean, we've only gone once, so I don't know all the answers, but
I've gone 0 times.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
it was just something that was really on our mind lately, that, our kids are getting older. They're getting a little bit more independent. When is it our time? Like, we had all of this time before they were born, and then we just press pause. And that's not okay. Sure. It's our responsibility to teach them how to be in a marriage and how to be a couple and good parents. And so that's what we're working on, is just some counseling to talk through some of our issues and grow. And then, we plan on setting some date nights and
Sure.
some time, because that was all on pause too for a long time.
Sure.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys have all said it, like no one's perfect. It's not going to be this like cookie cutter experience, but I think you've all said it and I would agree with this, like that there's the intentionality behind it.
mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, it didn't work today, and it's like, what does it look like though to actually then say, but when will it work?
Right.
And not just let it be this thing that's like flippantly just out there,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, we make schedule for our children. Why can't we do the schedule for the family,
Right.
including us? And so I think there's just something that's always on my wife and I's mind of just like, okay, we can't forget about each other. And there's a lot of sacrifice that happens when you become a parent. And I think because your spouse is probably your most trusted individual, your best friend, it's really easy to say, well, they get it.
Mm-hmm.
They're in it too with us, right? We're in this together. And so we're all making sacrifices. And I just think there's that level of, again, and I don't think we have it figured out either, but just that encouragement of like, don't allow the trust to be the reason you just kind of forget. And I think there's something that's really special about the intentionality that can come with making it work. And maybe it is a Mario Monday, and maybe it is like, hey, you have to watch this show with me. And then maybe, and it's the one thing my wife and I have done is just said, even if in the evening we end up going our separate ways, there's this like almost powwow little meeting we do where we might even be sitting on opposite couches, and there's just the big deep exhale from the day, and it's like, hey, are you good? Like, how was today?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it might be a 5-minute conversation, it might turn into a 2-hour conversation, but just something that's like, before we know we're gonna go and continue to just kind of roll, like, can we just check in?
Right.
Is there a moment just to say like, I'm still thinking about you, and so that's been beneficial for us, but I think it goes back to even parenting as a whole. It's finding what works, and that being okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love, as we kind of wrap, is there again, just knowing there's tons of books and tons of shows and tons of things to read and talk, but it's maybe what's one piece of advice that you've received that you've applied that's been great for you, or one thing that you've just kind of learned that you said, hey, here's a takeaway of what it means to be a parent and all that.
I think my favorite one is they're only little once, and pick your battles. Obviously, your foundation needs to be strong, but let them be kids.
Yeah.
For us, it would be pray with your kids every night. Even if they have no idea what you're saying, pray with them every night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've been in that habit for a long time now, and it's been so cool to watch our oldest, like our youngest now says amen, and it's cute because he knows when the amen's coming, because we have the same prayer layout every night. And our oldest the other night for the first time was like, Daddy, I want to pray for us.
Yeah.
And watching him pray for, like, we name everybody in our family. So, like, I'll pray for Mom, Dad, Jason, Zane. And he by himself added in his baby sister because he knows her name. And it's just cool watching the impact happen that early on. So
That's awesome.
I think just leaning into that help and not holding any expectations with it, knowing that you're going to need it. You're going to have times when it's imperative for you to be able to move forward or function, and knowing that that is okay. It's okay to lean in and to have that help and to have those extra hands and the people that are going to show up and want to do it for you. Let them. Just let them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the one thing that I think we've started to lean into advice-wise has been similar to you, Nicole, but like these are a lot of moments, and it's not forever. And there's like this little kind of saving grace and peace found in the late nights are for now, but they're not going to be forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the chaos is for now, but it's not going to be forever. And so by kind of accepting that, it allows, I think, there to be some peace and comfort found in the midst of the 3 a.m. diaper changes or the chaotic meltdowns of like, they're not going to melt down like this forever, I hope. But I think that like parenting is done in moments, and so it's been good. But well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys being on and replacing Chris. I'm sure he would have had something to say.
We would have had so many more stories.
Yeah,
from
probably
these two.
just war
Brock and
stories
Chris.
and
It's
horror
good-
stories.
It's a good thing he's not here.
Yeah. So, but I think a good reminder of you're not alone. I think Kathleen, you've brought up a bunch. Find that community, find those, even if it's just one other trusted individual that you allow to speak into your life. And yeah, you're not alone in this. And it's good. So, hey, this has been the Bayview Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe. Find us on all the fun platforms. And for Brock and Kathleen and Nicole, this is Andrew signing off. We'll see you in the next one.